Hello, welcome to this video. In today's class, I will be talking to you about the complex sentence. As you may already know, complex sentences are composed by a single independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Alright, so we have three examples here on the board, which I will be explaining to you one by one. The first one says, I went to the doctor. Here, we have an independent clause. I went to the doctor, which can stand by itself as a sentence, for itself as a sentence. Alicia went to the doctor. It makes sense on its own, so it could be a sentence on its own, all right? Being in a lot of pain, this would be the first dependent clause. Being in a lot of pain, this depends on this. Who? Alicia went to the doctor. Being in a lot of pain made the doctor give her morphine. Made the doctor give her morphine would be the second dependent clause. So this is dependent clause, and this is a dependent clause also. So these are the ingredients for a complex sentence. You don't have to have two dependent or subordinate clauses. You could have just one, but you cannot have two independent clauses. That is the rule for the complex sentence composition. All right? And the next one says, Samuel opened the gate. Here we have our first clause, and it's an independent clause. Samuel opened the gate. We could just add a period to it, and it could make perfect sense as a sentence. Samuel opened the gate, period. You could just end it there. But we have this other part of the sentence. And surprisingly, well, just let me put this down here so you don't get confused. And surprisingly ran away. This here, surprisingly, this is our dependent clause. So as you can see here, you can have one or more dependent clauses in a complex sentence, but only one independent clause. Samuel opened the gate and surprisingly ran away. All right. The next one, the last one, we went to Chicago wanting to meet the governor. We went to Chicago would be our first and only independent clause. We went to Chicago, period. It makes perfect sense in a sentence. We went to Chicago. All right? But we have this other part here, wanting to meet the governor. This would not make sense without this part here. So this is a dependent clause. We went to Chicago wanting to meet the governor and his wife. This would be our second dependent clause. All right, I hope this is understandable. As you see, let me repeat it once more. The complex sentence should have one single independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. All right? Next, I am going to move on to some practice sentences so that you can interact with me. All right, so now we are going to practice. The first example says, I went to the museum and saw the most amazing masks. Is the first one a complex sentence or not? I went to the museum. Here we have a principal or independent clause. I went to the museum and saw the most amazing masks. Saw the most amazing masks. And here we have a dependent clause. This depends on this here to make sense. I went to the museum and saw the most amazing masks. Because this here cannot stand for itself as a sentence. Saw the most amazing masks, period. You would say, what? Who saw the most amazing masks? Right? So up here, we specify the subject. I went to the museum and saw the most amazing masks. Because remember that a coherent sentence must have a subject, must have a predicate. All right? All right, the second one says, my sister went to the gym. Up to here, we have a perfectly independent clause. My sister went to the gym and met a wonderful man. And this one down here is a dependent clause, a dependent clause. Let me just put it here, DC. We know that it stands for dependent clause. And IC, this would stand for, that's right, independent clause. My sister, went to the gym, period. That could be a perfectly coherent sentence. My sister went to the gym. But we have this complement here, and met a wonderful man. Could this be a sentence here? Met a wonderful man. No, because you would need the object. I mean the subject. My sister, right? Subject. My sister went to the gym. Because if you only say met a wonderful man, you would say, huh? Who met a wonderful man? My sister, all right? So this is a complex sentence. This is a complex sentence too. And if you added another dependent clause, it would still be a complex sentence. All right, next one. We did not want you to go. We did not want you to go. This is our first independent clause here. Come back with us. This is another independent clause here. Come back with us. That could be another sentence. Come back with us, period. It makes perfect sense by itself. And the first one does too. We did not want you to go. All right? So these are two independent clauses. This is an independent clause, and this is an independent clause also. So this is not a complex sentence, because a complex sentence has one independent clause and one or more dependent clauses. Remember that. And the last one says, when you are learning a new language, you must concentrate. When you are learning a new language would be the first clause we have, and it's an independent clause or a dependent clause. When you are learning a new language, period. No, it cannot be an independent clause, right? Because you need to complement it. You must concentrate. You must concentrate. This is an independent clause. You must concentrate, period, would make perfect sense in a sentence. You must concentrate when you are learning a new language. So is this a complex sentence? Yes, it is, because we have our independent clause here, and we have our dependent clause up here. Okay? Well, next I am going to move on to some homework, because I want you to practice to improve your English. Would you like to watch my next video? Click on the television to the right. And one or more dependent clauses. And the compound complex sentence has one or more